So first thing I had lined up for today, I know. Well, I've seen this on your show, Fork Full of Noodles, that you've been covering the Assange case.
Yeah,
And your take is that he's a bad guy, right?
absolutely. I think I think what we need is less free speech and less journalistic integrity. There's too much integrity in journalism, Ron. CNN's, the MSNBC's, too much integrity, less integrity, more advertising is what I believe is what we need.
No one hears their side of it. No one hears the oil and gas companies take. No one hears. It's always so.
It's unfair.
Yeah, it really is. No, so you've been reporting on Assange, and that's been going on. Here's something very illuminating around this entire case, and we're going to talk about it. So this is a Twitter thread from Kevin Gustola. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. Here's a fun fact real quick. I followed Kevin, and then today when I pulled up this thread, because I wanted to talk about it on the show, I noticed I was not following Kevin anymore. I had to refollow Kevin. Yeah, so I refollowed him. So we'll see if that stays. But yeah, they do randomly unfollow people on Twitter. And I was following Kevin, and then randomly I wasn't following Kevin Gustola anymore. I noticed I pulled up this thread, and I was like, wait a second, I'm not following him? I know I followed him. So I saw the tweet because other people were retweeting it. And I had to refollow Kevin. So that does happen. You know what? My wife unfollowed me. Well, quote unquote, unfollowed me on Twitter. That's what I knew it was for sure a thing. When my wife, like she was on her Twitter, and I was like, wait a second, you don't follow me. She was like, what are you talking about? And then we looked, and sure enough, she was not following me on Twitter. They unfollowed because she doesn't really use Twitter. So they're like, oh, yeah, you don't want to follow this account. They unfollowed my wife from me on Twitter.
They're trying to break up your marriage. That's what they're trying to do.
That's naturally.
Twitter's like, we will bring unhappiness to the Placone household.
That's right.
Via Twitter.
None of this. So here's why I want to bring up this thread. There's a couple reasons, but let's go through it. And there's something really particular that Leon Panetta, who's the former director of the CIA, what he said. All right, so this is there's a documentary on German public TV, and they interviewed former CIA director Leon Panetta. All right, so here's what he says. You have to remember that throughout the history of this country, we have had spies. We prosecuted spies. Now he's saying Assange is a spy, which is completely not what Assange is. He's a publisher. So those couple sentences are completely ridiculous. The fact that that guy even uttered this and it was taken remotely seriously by anyone is sad. He's a publisher. He's a publisher. I mean, what do you like? Did this guy go to a journalism school and go, hey, which one of you is looking to be the next James Bond? And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? We're journalists. What are you talking about?
If anything, the CIA is closer to being spies than Julian Assange is.
Yeah, no kidding. well, they are closer. They're not close. Like they are. That's what they are. Like they are spies. This guy apparently doesn't know what a spy is. He was the director of the CIA. He does not understand what a spy is. He does not. I bet he thinks that all archaeologists are Indiana Jones. I bet he thinks that too. Since he doesn't understand the difference between a publisher and a spy, I bet he just thinks, oh, you want to be an archaeologist? Where's your gun at? You must hate Nazis, right? I do hate Nazis, but I'm not like you realize Indiana Jones is fiction, right? That's not real. That's not what archaeologists do. That's unbelievable. All right. So, and I'm not an archaeologist anyway, by the way, but so here's another sentence that Kevin highlights in this Twitter thread. Assange is somebody who will sell out somebody in his family. This is some more gems from Leon, who doesn't know what a spy is, but directed the CIA for some reason. Assange is somebody who will sell somebody in his own family if he think that, that he is going to get some attention. Groundbreaking analysis there. And Kevin mentions this is the kind of comment that a legal team can cite in their argument that this is a political prosecution. Now,
also, he kept his family private. Like the identity of Stella Morris and his kids was kept completely private.
He kept everything private.
Yeah.
He kept his sources private. He kept everything private. Oh, and how many documents has WikiLeaks had to retract? I'll give you a hint. Zero.
Zero.
That's the answer.
Zero.
Zero. All right. So here is the wow, just wow moment, which I retweeted this. And all I said in the retweet was, wow, just wow. Ready for this? Panetta revealing more of the game behind Trump administration prosecuting Assange, says Kevin. Here's the quote. You ready for this, Krish? Oh. All you can do, this is Panetta speaking, all you can do, he's speaking in the hypothetical you, all you can do is hope that you can ultimately take action against those that were involved in revealing that information. By that information, he just means stuff that they didn't want you to see, stuff the CIA didn't want you to see.
Right.
So you can send a message to others not to do the same thing. Let me just read the whole... Hold on, Chris. 1 second. Let me just read the whole thing again. Let me just read it straight through without interjecting any of my own verbiage. All you can do... This is Panetta, the former CIA director, speaking about the Assange case. This is his perspective as a former CIA director. He said this on TV. All you can do is hope that you can ultimately take action against those that were involved in revealing that information so you can send a message to others not to do the same thing. Holy wow. Wow.
I mean, they just spelled it out, right? They just spelled out that they're trying to make him an example. Like that's which is what we've all been saying since the beginning of this show trial, since last year when he was pulled out of the
before that, for years since he's been held in solitary confinement.
Right.
We've been saying they're trying to make an example out of him. They're trying to make an example. Say, hey, you want to publish something we don't want you to publish? Think twice. Hey, you're going to be a whistleblower inside some organization? Think twice. They're making an example of Julian Assange. They're making an example of Chelsea Manning, of Edward Snowden. And here he is just shamelessly saying it. He's just saying, I mean, they should have to throw this case out immediately. Just that this guy said that.
Not just this, but like UC Global, the fact that he was constantly being spied on by the CIA by basically hiring UC Global as their own personal like spying agency, which again, that's more of what spies do than somebody revealing war crimes. That's literally what Julian Assange did.
He thinks Julian Assange is a spy.
But he's a spy. Hey, I revealed that journalists were murdered by the American military. Spy. It's like, that's not...
Here's some war crimes I'm exposing because people gave me these documents. Oh, you must have spied. On what? The documents that were handed to me? I checked them for accuracy. Is that what do you think a spy is? How did you get your job? Why did anyone allow you to talk in front of a camera? Oh, because you revealed stuff like this. That's the only value in what this guy has to say. He's actually revealing. He's taking the mask off. In case anyone wasn't sure, which if you're not, clearly you haven't been following this case, or you've just been relying on cable news for your information. But wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a chilling confession.
It is. And Ron, just to push back a little bit, obviously you haven't seen James Bond Leaky Faucet, which is a lesser known James Bond film starring Nicolas Cage, actually, which is just about him revealing information, and then they call him a spy for it. So that's where that comes. It's no one really knew it. It had a very small budget. It was never released to the public.
It was probably among the more boring James Bond movies. I mean, it probably didn't work out because they were just like, yeah, we're going to take a different approach here. People just give him documents and he publishes it on the internet. And then he just, so it's just James Bond in some big penthouse suite that like the, that Britain paid for. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing my thing. And then he's just like sleeping with girls the whole time. Because that's what he does. That's what James Bond does. He always gets a lady. So he gets his lady or ladies, sometimes it's plural. And then he's just on his computer hitting publish. He's just like, hang on, let me do spell check. Shake it, not stir. Just publishing stuff. Then going back to the bedroom and they're like, this is just, you guys just kind of made a softcore porn with this one. There's no plot. There's no villain either. He just publishes documents. And then like, but the former CIA director was like, this is riveting. Best spy movie ever.
This is also coming from an agency where, like, Mike Pompeo was at some speech and he, like, very clearly said that the CIA is encouraged to lie, cheat, and steal. So, like, that's what they do against people that they don't like, is they lie, cheat, and steal in order to make people look bad. And it's like, why would you trust an agency like this? Why does this even exist?
Hey, Leon Panetta, what's Sherlock Holmes about? What did Sherlock Holmes do? He wrote for a newspaper. He was the mild-mannered spy. That's how it goes. Another famous spy in pop culture, Clark Kent, aka Superman. By day, Clark Kent was a spy for the Metropolis Daily Reporter, but by night he was Superman, and that's how he knew where all the bad guys were, because he was a spy covering the spy beat, like spies do.
Yeah.
You know who else was a spy? Peter Parker.
Peter Parker.
He did his spying through pictures. Also, another spy that the CIA should have been on top of.
Worked for that in the private surveillance company, the Daily Bugle.
That's right. That's the brand. That guy was always angry. That editor guy. He was always ticked off because he was spying on so many people.
I think we're really forgetting the CIA's #1 mission statement, which is kill all messengers. It's a lot of people forget that's part of the CIA's mission statement. It's kill all messengers, which is why they also hate the Postal Service. So, who are also spies, but like a different class of spies.
They're the local spies.
They're the local spies.
I mean, he just says it. He's like, hopefully this sends a message to other people. Hopefully this guy has been put in solitary confinement for years. And by the way, that's torture. He's been tortured for years. He's held without charge. I mean, the way they are cherry picking this for the prosecution is absolutely nuts. They're saying, oh yeah, the Espionage Act applies to this guy, but the First Amendment doesn't because he's an American citizen. And oh, by the way, he's gonna be positioned this way so he can't get to his attorneys. I mean, it is just unreal the way they're going about this trial. Oh, and they're trying to get this hacking charge against him that there's no evidence.
There's no evidence
whatsoever ever happened.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, and the other thing too is, so I hear a lot of people talk about like, oh, we need to vote for the courts, right? We need to vote for the Supreme Court and stuff. Well, the Supreme Court in 1918, a year after the Espionage Act was written, said that the Espionage Act doesn't violate any free speech laws.
It's implemented. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, in the early 1900s, it was specifically going after anti-war socialists, and now it's like we're mostly going after anti-war whistleblowers and privacy whistleblowers is really who we're going after, and publishers. And publishers. So it's like it's always been about making sure that the American war economy keeps chugging along the way that it wants to, and then the Espionage Act basically is a bill that kind of lets you do that. It pretty much lets you just keeps the American war economy chugging along without anybody to like really push back against it. So
well, yeah, because I mean, these types of things, they come through at a time when we are in severe international conflict. You know, the Espionage Act happened as a result of World War I.
Right.
And then, you know, the FARA Act, which that was originally intended to combat against Nazi propaganda, that came about as a result of World War II. So these are pieces of policy that came about during times of significant international conflict. I'm not saying the United States is at peace by any means. We're causing destruction all around the world. But still, these pieces of policy just have no place today. They really have no place today.
And we keep manufacturing reasons for them to continue to stay in place. Like we keep going into wars. That's one of the parts of the Espionage Act is you can't say anything about the American military. And then there was a portion of the Sedition Act, which was like the jelly to the peanut butter that is the Espionage Act, that basically said like you can't even criticize the way the military dresses during times of war, which is like a really weird thing to add in there, because it makes me think like, what did Woodrow Wilson really want? the American military to be dressed up in, you know. But it's stuff like that. So it's like we have to keep manufacturing reasons to be at war so we can never criticize the military. And if you criticize the military, you know, you're walking on the edge of treason. You're walking on the edge of, you know, being a red or being a terrorist sympathizer or whatever label they want to throw on you.
Yeah, wasn't like the Espionage Act, wasn't it first, like one of the first people it was used against was someone who was like a member of the Socialist Party and worked closely with Eugene Debs, right?
Yeah, his name was Schenck, and he was
Yes.
passing out anti-war leaflets, not even like a brochure, just like a piece of paper telling people like why they shouldn't join the war effort, because and it was around the same time that Eugene Debs made that big famous speech in Canton, Ohio, where he points out that the working class is basically cannon fodder for the rich, and we don't determine the means of war or peace. Like, we're never invited to negotiate peace, and we're never invited to declare war. That's always rich senators that have, you know, connections to private interests. And then they arrested Schenck for passing the leaflets, and they arrested Eugene Debs for essentially talking. Is what he did.
So Espionage Act, great history. Glad we're using it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic history. And now it's being used to commit an atrocious assault on freedom of the press, which is what this entire charade has been.
It's
and
175 years. Is that's what they're trying to put him in prison for 175 years, which is a ludicrous amount of time.
It's, well, I mean, it's
day insane.
Is a ludicrous amount of time. He didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything. I mean, he did his job. That's what he did. And here you have a guy openly admitting that they're trying to make an example of the guy. That's what they're trying to do. I'll read it one more time just because it bears repeating. All you can do, this is Leon Panetta, former CIA director on Julian Assange and the prosecution. All you can do is hope that you can ultimately take action against those that were involved in revealing that information, so you can send a message to others to not do the same thing.
So insane.
Beyond insane. Beyond insane.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your